Hello and welcome to the Deb Calvert channel on Bright Talk. I'm Deb Calvert and I'm excited to be with you here again this month. We're doing monthly webinars for sales managers focused in this series all year long on managing sales and leading people, with a heavy emphasis the first half of the year on the part related to leading people. And that's what we'll be talking about today, because leaders inspire people. And one of the ways they inspire people is that they focus on the future and they build toward something better. But as sales managers, one thing that might keep many of us from being inspirational is that we get too caught up in handling what is here and now. The quotas, the deadlines, the forecasts, the contracts, the customer issues, the hiring and onboarding and all the meetings. We might get caught up in all of that without allowing time for inspiring and planning and developing and building toward the future. And of course, since we're measured on what we produce today, of course, that's a natural place to focus. But it is short term. It is about managing sales. It's not about leading people. So if you are focusing reactively, short-term, on the work that needs to get done today and on the numbers that need to be posted, at what cost? That's the question. For those who are new to Bright Talk, welcome. I'm really glad you were able to join us. I want to tell you just a few things about the platform. For starters, there are some attachments and links for you there. Today I gave you some links to my 2 weekly blogs. One is all about sales. Currently, we're running a series that's about how to succeed if you have just recently been promoted to a sales manager role. The other blog, Connect to Lead, is for leaders at every level, and it covers management topics throughout the year. And it also has a series right now. We just finished one about toxic leadership and another one about how to be the supervisor that everybody wants to work for. We're focusing right now on engaging employees. So join me over there on the blogs, link with me on LinkedIn. I would like to make sure that we have a chance to stay in touch. If you're having any issues during the presentation with slides or with sound, please be sure and click the orange button so that you can get live support from the people at Bright Talk, because I'm not able to handle any of the technical issues for you. I wish I could. Okay, so what we do here at People First Productivity Solutions, besides webinars and blogs, we do sales manager training, leadership development, executive coaching. We help people to get connected in ways that will make a difference, the difference that they want to make in business. And as a coach and someone who works with a lot of sales managers, I have to tell you that the number one issue, no contest, the number one issue I see for sales managers is this propensity to focus on the short term without thinking about some of the impacts and lost opportunities by missing out on looking at the long term, by being reactive instead of being proactive. Now, what do I mean by proactive? I mean proactive. That means looking into the future, taking steps that are anticipatory to prevent problems, to prepare for future situations, to grow and to be equipped for whatever the future might bring. That puts you in control. If you can be expecting occurrences or situations, if you're prepared for them, you're better in control and you're stronger because of that preparation. What gets in the way of being proactive is that sales managers have so many obligations. I truly don't know of a harder job anywhere at any level than sales manager, because you have so many constituent groups that are looking to you for immediate responses and answers. And so if you're like many sales managers, you have a tendency to jump into the phone booth, don your cape, and swoop in to save the sale or to put out the fire. And there are constant fires. It probably happens to you all day long, so that you might not ever feel like you know what's going to happen in a given day. You're at the mercy of whatever problems or situations crop up in that day. The best thing to do to get started, to become more proactive, to think longer than 1 or 2 days ahead, is to shift the way you look at situations. What I'm showing you on screen, this really is the essence of the difference between being a manager who handles things today and a leader who leads people to new heights, who inspires people to achieve things they didn't know were possible. It does require a balance. We'll talk about that. There are some managers, sales and otherwise, who focus exclusively on today, on the here and now. And there are also some leaders at any level. I'm not talking about senior management when I say leaders, but there are some people in leadership roles, including management roles, who focus exclusively on their grandiose plans for the future. And both are going to fail. You do have to have a balance. Good leaders, visionary leaders, they spend enough time in the here and now to understand the current needs and gaps. They also think about the future, and they attempt to proactively influence it rather than simply reacting to it as it unfolds day by day. So I'd like you to ask yourself a question. It's a question that will require you to be honest with yourself. The question to ask yourself is this: am I so addicted to the adrenaline rush of solving the latest crisis that I focus there for the wrong reasons? And this is a fair question, because you get to play superhero several times a day if all the problems come to you. And if your feel-good buzz in the work you do comes from being the problem solver, then you may have a real challenge to make this kind of a shift. But making that shift makes a real difference. And I want you to think about the possibilities if you were to make a shift like that. To be proactive, it means three things. When you're proactive, you are taking control. You're taking control of your own life, of the goals that you set, of the goals for your team, and for the ways that you go about reaching those goals and how you achieve them. And when you're proactive, you create your own opportunities. You look farther down the road and you make plans differently than if you're only looking at one quota period at a time. And when you're proactive, you become the engineer of your own destiny. Right? You're the one who makes the decisions. You don't wait for things to happen around you. When you are proactive, you're the one who's in charge. You're not at the mercy of others or of situations that crop up. Now, I told you I wanted to draw this contrast. Bear with me here. I'm just going to give you a couple illustrations, and they are extreme. They're silly on purpose. I want to make a point. But I'd like you to come along with me and envision yourself in these scenarios. First, imagine that you're visiting me at my home. We're sitting in my front room, and I have some candles burning. And the candles, they're scented. Pick your scent, whatever you like. And the candles are burning, and they're a little bit too close to the curtain. And as you and I are talking, the curtains catch fire. And I observe this happening, and I begin talking to you about a state-of-the-art sprinkler system that I could install and other different kinds of things that I could do in the future to prevent this sort of a problem from happening again. And as we watch, and we've made our way outdoors now to look at the scenario, as we watch, the whole house burns down because I don't react at all. I only plan for the future. Silly and extreme, yes. My point being, proactive alone isn't what we're after. You have to use your own best judgment. But I also don't want you to fall into the second trap of being simply, merely, always reactive. So imagine now that you are visiting me again in my lovely new home with the state-of-the-art sprinkler system, and you You see me jump up because I noticed that the dog has dug yet another hole under the fence and he's escaped, and you're amused as you watch me run the neighborhood and try to catch the dog. Finally, I do. I put him in the backyard again, but only after I put the dirt right back into the hole. And I come back in lamenting how this happens over and over and over again. But yet I do nothing different. I temporarily refilled the hole. I set myself up for the very same problem to happen again, and when it does, I'll be reacting again. Now, these are two extremes. Both of them, I could be viewed as a problem solver in either one, but obviously these are not productive, intelligent ways to handle the situation. But the truth is, in sales management, oftentimes we are just filling the hole back up. We aren't pouring a little concrete. We're not digging the fence piles deeper. We're not putting up an electric fence or kenneling the dog or any number of other things that could potentially prevent the problem from happening again in the future. And as you refill that hole and put the dog in the backyard over and over and over again, you're making a whole lot more work for yourself, and your time could be better spent. And frankly, you're keeping sales and opportunities and people from developing because of your reactiveness versus proactiveness. But this comes to you naturally. Part of it's from the job. The job does force a certain amount of reactiveness, but there are also other reasons. And this is why it's easier to be reactive than it is to be proactive. And not only that, if being proactive has always worked for you in the past, then you might not fully see the value or the ways to be more proactive. You might be afraid that if you don't do it right now, it's not going to get done. Or you might not have come into the job with skills for strategic planning and looking long term because as a salesperson, you were conditioned to always look at the immediate. Maybe you've always been rewarded for handling the day-to-day work, and frankly, you're good at it. You're a good problem solver, fire putter outer, super person putting on your cape and swooping in to save the sale or correct the issue, whatever it might be. And frankly, your schedule is pretty packed as it is, packed full of immediate needs, immediate issues that have to be resolved. So that's what keeps you potentially from drawing a line in the sand and deciding to do less reacting and to become more proactive. But I'd like you to be indulgent for a moment. I'd like you to think for you, if you could become more proactive, if you could do more long-term planning, if you could look further into the future and create a vision that was inspiring to people so that they'd work harder and strive with more effort toward it, if you could be more planful, more strategic, more proactive, what would be some of the benefits of that for you? Would it mean less stress? Would it mean more peace of mind because you're in control? Would it mean that sales would grow because you'd be developing people, they'd be more competent, more confident, more capable in their own right, better able themselves to solve those problems and handle those issues and make those sales so that you don't have to be the one swooping in anymore? What would it mean to your company if you were able to engage at the level of management versus at the level of selling? What would it mean if you were able to demonstrate your strategic thinking and position yourself for that next level job? I'd like you to think about those benefits, and I'd like you to think about what you're signaling to your team as a sales manager who's reactive. I'll give you an analogy to work with. If you had a reactive person who were to be the captain of a ship, the ship would flow with the currents. This captain would be preoccupied with studying the currents, trying to predict where the ship's going to end up as a function of the currents. And if the currents are good, then the captain's happy. But if the currents are poor, this captain will feel mighty stressed. On occasion, this captain might attempt to set a destination and hope to get lucky. And then if the currents are good, yes, the ship will arrive. But if the currents are unfavorable, the captain would be bemoaning them and giving up that destination for one that's easier to reach. On the other hand, if a proactive person were to captain the ship, then the ship would go wherever the captain wanted it to go. The captain would still note the currents, but they'd merely be used for navigational purposes. Sometimes the ship would flow with the currents. Other times it would steam against them. It wouldn't matter all that much whether the currents were good or bad. Our proactive captain will reach the intended destination regardless of the currents. The currents, they can only control maybe the time of arrival and the exact path from the starting point to the final destination. But the currents have absolutely no power now to dictate the final destination, because now the captain is in control. The captain is proactive. And if I were to choose which ship I wanted to ride on, I would choose the proactive captain every time. As a salesperson, I'd feel a lot better working for that captain who had that certainty and that level of control to get us where we're all trying to go. So, now that you know the benefits, you've thought about the benefits for yourself, and you want to be more proactive, let's talk about the characteristics that you need. What you see on screen here, this comes from Stephen Covey. If being proactive is challenging for you, then it might be because you need a little development work in one of these areas. See, a lack of proactivity, it might be the function of the job, but you'll want to steam against that, just like our captain steaming against the currents. More often, though, it can be traced to a weakness, an underdevelopment in one of these four endowments that you see on screen. Maybe you're spending too much time in a state of low consciousness. You're not aware, and you're not reflecting and pushing yourself to reach the level of awareness necessary to make proactive life choices. Or maybe your consciousness about this has become muddled by either societal conditioning or by the job itself and all the pressures that you're under. So now you're not even sure what you really want anymore. When something doesn't feel quite right, you look to others to decide how you should feel about it, or you accept it as the circumstances. You don't push back against them. Or maybe you're just not taking a deep breath and giving yourself time to visualize alternatives. Maybe your independent will is being restricted because you have decided that pressure to conform to others' expectations, like sell something today, and you haven't even entertained the idea that there could be a better way, that you don't have to do that reactive stuff over and over and over again. Now, if you're going to become proactive, it means you'll need to do these four things. Let me explain each one of them. So first, you'll have to anticipate change. Anticipating change means that you're going to accept that change is inevitable, and then you work to stay ahead of it and in control of it. It's a decision that you make. If you don't stay one step ahead of change, well, it happens anyway. It's just that it's directed by someone or something else, and now you're forced to react to it. If you start first, if you implement the change, if you decide the change and are in control of it, then you no longer have to react. You were proactive. The other thing you'll have to do is you'll have to be constantly looking for opportunities to improve. That means solving little problems, itty-bitty problems along the way, and troubleshooting all the time. You won't let yourself be complacent and accept the status quo. Instead, you'll be yearning for what's new, what's next, what could be better. And when you do that, you're going to have fewer big problems. There will be fewer crisis situations to solve. A little precaution before a crisis occurs is always preferable to having to fix it up afterward. This is that old maxim, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That applies here. So think of yourself as a doctor who conducts wellness checkups and prescribes diet and exercise, not as a heart surgeon who does quadruple bypass procedures. That's another choice. You get to make it. Now, you have to be careful. To become more proactive, you'll need to avoid any admiring the problem. That's when you go into a meeting, you discuss the problem, lots of plans get made, but not a lot of action gets taken. The point of creating a plan is to go through the creative process and pick a solution and proceed to fix the problem. And one of the ways that you can do this, because it might start to sound like it will require a lot of time, but it won't if you do the fourth thing on the list here, and that is to empower others. In your case, if you're a sales manager, that means empowering the salespeople to make their own sales, to solve their own problems, to determine their own alternatives. When they come to you and they say, hey, I've got a problem with the XYZ department, you don't pick up the phone. You say, oh, what do you think would be the best course of action here? You don't say, I'll take care of it. You say, how are you going to take care of it? And if they need some instruction, of course, you provide that once, and you set the expectation that they're going to handle these sorts of things in the future the same way that you've now instructed them to do. Certainly, you could do it faster. You can do it because you have authority. You can do it because you've done it a dozen times before. But that's short-sighted. Don't you want others to be able to do it too? That way you don't have to. And you can move on to do better, more strategic, more planful work that sets you and the team up for success long term. But you'll have to empower them. You'll have to give up and let go of some of the things that you are currently doing. You want to be able to get to a point where proactively you can create a vision for the future, a vision that inspires people, a vision that positions you as a leader, someone that others willingly choose to follow, someone who is guiding people to a new place that they've never been before, a place where they want to be. It's about managing sales and leading people. So to become more future-focused, you have to develop a vision. I want to define vision first. This gets confused a lot of times. A vision is much more than a goal. It's not just a plan for the long term. A vision is something that really inspires people. It's big. It has power. It's got some passion behind it. People are excited by it. And when the going gets rough, when energy is depleted, when people aren't sure if they can pick up the phone and make one more phone call, vision is what sustains them. So you have a vision and you continually breathe life into it. You inspire. That's what it means. Inspire means to breathe life into. You breathe life into it over and over and over again to undergird and motivate people. To get a vision, for it to be a good vision, it will require some effort in observing and analyzing and consulting with others. It also requires a clear understanding of your existing situation and where the organization is heading. Not only that, but you'll need to stay on top of the situation by continually assessing the possibilities that can move you forward. And you have to have the courage to act upon the best of those possibilities to produce change. What I'm showing you on screen, by the way, those are not vision. I wanted to give you a contrast I'll give it to you one more way, but you probably have things like this. Maybe we could call these goals, or at best, mini visions, because these are not all that inspiring. These are task items. These are goals. The contrast I want to draw for you is I'd like you to think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Think about his famous speech, "I Have a Dream." It's been over 50 years since he gave that speech, but everybody can summon some memory of it and feel inspired by it even to this day. And Dr. King said, "I have a dream." He said it multiple times in that speech, "I have a dream." And he knew the vision that he was portraying in that speech was not something he'd likely see in his lifetime. He knew it would take years of struggle and effort, but he didn't scale it back. He had the dream anyway, and he painted that picture of the future, and because of it, people did struggle mightily and continue to make that dream become a reality. Things might have been very different if Dr. King had on that day stood up and said, "I have a list of measurable objectives." Well, that wouldn't be very inspiring at all. And yet, if we're simply managing, if we're not thinking about ourselves as leaders, then you're not delving into the realm of dreams either. You're giving measurable objectives. And that's the part of your job that's managing sales, but it doesn't stretch into the part that is leading people. So as I said, these are not visions. There are pieces that are missing. Ultimately, each of these statements focuses on today and on doing today's work better or faster. These are all goals that may help to achieve a vision, but there's a bigger vision on top of all of these. That bigger vision cascades into these goals. These goals should serve the vision. You might think about vision as, what do we want to be when we grow up? And then think about the goals as achieving each of the steps required to get there. The question that determines goals is simply what steps must be taken to achieve the vision. So if the vision was to be a medical doctor, the goals along the way might have been to graduate high school with honors, get a 1400 on the SAT, get accepted into a pre-med program and then into a prestigious medical school, and then to pass the boards and so on. All of these are milestones along the way to the ultimate vision. Another way you might think about vision proactively is, what do we want the future to look like? And people need to know that. That's the context for the work they do. It's not another cold call. It's a step toward the vision. So where does vision come from? Well, it comes from your organization. There might be a mission or a corporate vision. And for your team, there might be a vision within that vision. How do you serve the bigger vision? For your team, for the kinds of customers that you call on, for the sort of product that you sell, what difference do you want to make in the world for those customers? As a leader, what difference do you want to make for the people who are on your team? These are all considerations as you think about the vision, the change, the difference that you want to make. And to get there, you've got to think about not what is, not what was, but potential. What could be? And because the very best visions are not those of a single leader, they are a vision that's shared by all. Because it's shared, you also want to get vision from the perspective of the members of your team, maybe even from your customers. Then people have a vision that is shared, they see themselves in it, and it will be a lot easier for you to enlist them in the struggle toward reaching that vision. Good leaders inspire, they breathe life into the shared vision, they take people to a new place, a place they've never been before, but a place where they really want to get to. And once you've got the vision crafted, proactively, you have to inspire it by communicating it. You can't bring the vision to life all by yourself. There's no such thing as leaders in ivory towers. If that's how you think of leadership, you've got it wrong. Leaders engage with people, and they rely on people, and they constantly communicate back and forth with people. So you have to engage and energize others to work toward this vision with you. You're going to involve others in crafting the vision. That gives you early buy-in. It gives you a deeper commitment and investment in the vision. You're going to be detailed as you craft what that vision entails, and you're going to know how the vision benefits each individual member of the team. That's because people need to know, WIIFM, what's in it for me. But they also need to know WIIFU, that is, what's in it for us, what's in it for the whole team. And at the same time that you're inspiring others by painting the picture of the future, be sure that you break it down into the piece parts, the little wins along the way, the stair steps, one goal at a time, one milestone at a time, so that they have those successes, and you celebrate those successes, and you talk about how those successes are bringing you closer and closer to the realization of your vision. And you wouldn't communicate this once. You'd keep this vision alive by referencing it all the time. It's the reason that you make the decisions you make day to day. It's the reason that you don't react to certain things, but instead entrust those to others so that they'll take care of those things. It's the reason that you set the goals. It's the reason you hire the people you hire. It's the reason you provide the training that you do and the coaching that you do. Your vision, you can't let it become a casualty of you backsliding into reactive mode. You'll have to be very careful once you hang up your cape not to go back and put it on over and over again. That's confusing. So be sure that you don't communicate a vision unless you really mean it and you're willing, you're ready to commit by giving up your cape. Now, when the day-to-day operation does seem to be taking all your time and energy, you might need some strategies to get your focus back on the future, back on your vision. The objective of these strategies is to make the future focus exciting and relevant, and to avoid the risk that future plans are just one more thing on your to-do list that keeps getting pushed out till some other day. To move forward, as I said, you're going to get everybody involved right from the start. It's a shared vision. And it's going to be simple. It doesn't have 50 bullet points. It's crisp. It's simple. It's an ideal state of the future that everybody wants to get to. And you're going to keep it front and center. It's going to provide context for decisions you make and for work you ask others to do. Every once in a while, as you're keeping it visible, you might put up posters, or you might, maybe there's some way you embed it into your contest. When people reach their goals, you celebrate that because of the goal being achieved and the vision being something that you've gotten closer to reaching. You might also decide occasionally to have future focus meetings. That's where, instead of it being a sales meeting with a rundown of all the deadlines and products and deliverables and CRM reports that you need, instead of that kind of a tactical meeting, every once in a while, you're conducting a strategic meeting. It's a meeting that is exclusively devoted to looking at the future. It's where you inspire people and reiterate the vision, and where you celebrate those successes, those small incremental wins that move you toward the vision. Of course, you're going to set metrics and milestones. That's how people know that success is happening. That's how people understand how their goals and their KPIs are linked to the big vision. And most importantly, you're going to lead by example. If you keep reacting to everything every day, everyone else will too. Being proactive instead of being reactive, it's a discipline. And this discipline, it even means that you would allow a sale to be lost. Yep, you heard me right. You would be willing to lose a sale if it meant that somebody was learning and growing and would make many more sales in the future because they learned from this instance. You wouldn't swoop in to save that sale. You'd use it as a learning opportunity to fully equip that seller to be autonomous and independent and working on their own, not relying on you as the mercenary closer, not relying on you as the crutch, not relying on you every time a problem crops up. Because ultimately, your job as a sales manager isn't just about making sales today. It's also about building people who can build the business long term. After all, you're just one person. It's not scalable and it's not sustainable for you to react to everything every day and to try to be everything to everyone. You have to be proactive to get out of that mode. So it's time for a little action planning. The objective is for you to begin developing a future focus while also dealing with the demands of today's work. This isn't going to happen overnight. You've got to start giving away some of those problems, and you've got to wean yourself away from that place where you've been, where you are the superhero swooping in to save every issue. So you've got to figure out how to back away from the reactive and move toward the proactive. You may have to do it gradually. If you need some help, by all means, get in touch with me. I've coached a lot of sales managers through this process, and I can work with you individually, or I can work with you as a team. We have additional training around this topic, lots of techniques, field-tested, proven ways that you can extract yourself and become a true leader, someone who manages sales but also leads people.